Kathy, it's so great to be with you here. I'm so thrilled to be in Orlando and have a conversation with someone who's been an entrepreneur, a community leader, a cultural leader here. And all three of those roles have such impact for all of us in any field that we're in, because there is a show, there's a stage in all of our lives. There's, as I've heard from many chairmen, a Shakespearean play in almost every executive's leadership journey. And you had this vision decades ago for creating something that maybe others at the time might not have been able to visualize. What was the experience of you starting with almost a clean sheet of paper?
Yeah. Well, first of all, welcome
Thank you.
to the Dr. Phillips Center, the Walt Disney Theater,
I love being here.
and especially to Orlando.
Oh,
And we're happy that you're here.
thank you. I feel that way. That's
Good.
the other great thing about being here.
That's
Thanks
good.
to you.
That's good. You know, I had the chance, there was a notion in the community that we needed to build a performing arts center. And it's one of those questions is, what kind of performing arts center? Because we didn't know what we didn't have, right?
Right.
And nor did we really ask as much as we probably should have earlier on. And I think also our community, when we were trying to understand what it should be, I don't know if we were quite ready to do something that needed so much alignment, kind of tenacity in some regards, but also the right time for the opportunity. So in 2003, when I had the chance to get involved, our new mayor, Mayor Buddy Dyer, said, we ought to try to get the Performing Arts Center done. And then our chairman, they collectively kind of came to terms when he was becoming mayor, we ought to get this Performing Arts Center done. And then they asked me to help put the business plan together. I never thought that I would be with it as long as I have been, but they said, would you help us put the business plan, what it should be, what it should cost, and who should pay for it. It was
And
that
how
simple.
did you get called to that wonderful task?
Well, can I tell you what? It was kind of it was all happenstance. And so I knew the mayor. He didn't know much about my background, but my background was in film.
Right.
It was in development. It was in design. And
Perfectly aligned for this.
it was. But no one knew that. I didn't even know that. I thought, I could do, I've done business plans before. Easy to do.
Sure.
And at that time, I don't think our community really understood what the potential could be. But the guiding light for us was, how do we, this is the mayor, Jim Pugh, myself, perhaps we can evolve an industry that's very hard to evolve. These buildings are around for a couple hundred years. Buildings sometimes shape purpose of the business.
Interesting. It's iconic, isn't it?
It is. It's iconic, but also the cultures within the building kind of resemble institutions that you might have inherited. Decisions aren't made quickly. It's kind of hard to turn the ship. And we thought, they don't, sometimes the arts comes across as elite. They're not as welcoming as we want them to be. Sometimes the places make you feel that way. Sometimes the people and the industry makes you feel that way. So we kind of stepped back and we said, you know what, maybe there's a chance where we can change an industry. And that was interesting to me.
That's a bigger vision.
It was bigger.
On top of a huge one.
That's right. It was. And so we then started, both mayor, we all kind of came from a humble place where we know we didn't have all the answers. And nor did we want to have all the answers. We went back and looked at some good work that had already been done. And then we started...
Other theater
well,
programs?
Here.
Or
well, we tried to get
here?
in, we tried to look at what was happened here, because there was good work that was done. And why wasn't it successful?
You debriefed what
Yeah, we were trying to
from
understand
that.
why are they so hard?
Right.
So the average time to really build a performing arts center usually takes about 20 years.
20 years?
20 years.
Who has a 20-year plan anymore?
Yeah, or the fortitude to stick with it.
Exactly.
Especially when you're dealing with volunteers.
Yes.
So your board's volunteers, right? So then we started really listening to other art center leaders. And what's nice about our art centers is we don't really compete. And so the sharing of information and asking of questions and listening to where their challenges have been, they're very humble, again, in that regard, to say, let me tell you what I could have done if I had the chance to build this. Because most of them didn't have a chance to build their venues because they've been around for so long.
Somehow you gave them the sense of safety to feel that they could start to share about what had not worked so that they could see something come together.
Right. We were also really coachable. We're very coachable. And our chairman and our mayor and I, we like to win. And so it's also, so we went into this that if we're going to do this, we're going to win. And we want to learn. And so we had some great coaches learn a couple things, and then we came back with our takeaways. And in the very beginning, our business initial business plan was have a big idea, have great leadership, and great communication. That was it. And then we started answering the questions: what it should be, what it should cost, and who should pay for it.
What hadn't been coming together that led you to those three?
Well, I think the previous efforts were big ideas, but the idea that we really were pursuing is, how do you make sure a place that's this important can feel so approachable by everybody? And then what was kind of happening before is sometimes when you want to build a building that has to have philanthropy, or any type of building, the first thing you do is hold a picture. And we said, we don't want this to be about the building. Now look at the magnitude of the building. So the architect, he wasn't really happy when we said, we're not showing you the building. We said, listen, this is about the business. It's about the purpose.
I see.
So from 2003 to almost 2008 or 9, we kind of knew what the building looked like, but we didn't show it to anybody. We only talked about
Really?
What the values of the business is going to be, what the purpose of the business is going to be, and then we answered the question: what should it be? What should it cost, and who should pay for it? And then after we aligned all the funding,
Really?
we showed what it looked like.
So that you didn't have people just kind of being the taste place, rather than you were able to touch hearts and souls and heads at the same time.
The other thing we learned is the region wasn't believing in itself. There had not been a project that was actually turned over to philanthropy.
Really?
So you think of great cities, San Francisco, New York, Cleveland, Chicago, Philadelphia, Denver. Their personalities are because of philanthropy. Philanthropy gave so much wealth to build these great anchors in the community. And they had great influence over the personality and the culture, you mentioned culture earlier, of that community. We hadn't had one done. Everything was led by government. And that's important because that's the cornerstone, the foundation. But those card keys hasn't been turned over to philanthropy and say, you take the risk. You have the responsibility. And that happened with this project. And it came because of trust between Mayor Dyer and our chairman, Jim Pugh. It was just the three of us. Okay. And they want to win. I want to win. Right. And so it's like, okay, now how can we be successful? Well, what we noticed is there was a lot of people saying, you're never going to get this done. There's a lot of people that they wanted it. I'm not sure if they wanted this team to do it, but they wanted it. And then the feeling of this needs to be for everybody was very different from the previous designs in the previous businesses. They thought it ought to be for something more narrow or more specific. Very important, narrow and specific areas, but it wasn't as inclusive. And so then we thought, okay, well, we're hearing that philanthropy might not have the bench. We might not have a bench of philanthropy here. And in my gut said, you know what, I don't know if we're inviting everyone to build community here. And so our decision was, it's harder to find new people and invite new people to be part of building a community. It takes more time.
It does.
It does. But it's very important.
Was that alignment then to be trying to open up the aperture of opportunities?
That's right.
And that's why you didn't want to settle for narrower cases? What would be an example of some of those kind of narrower cases?
Yeah, okay, so that's a great question. What's interesting is they were narrow, but they were important.
Of course.
Okay, so when you say that you want to broaden it, then all of a sudden you've got some adversity because they're thinking that they're not as important, very important. But so are the other areas. So we have, and we were a very fortunate city. We have a great a dance company, Orlando Ballet. We have an opera, and we have the Orlando Philharmonic. And they needed a place to grow. And initially, the center was just for those three forms of work.
Right, makes sense.
Makes sense because they
needed a venue.
They needed a venue because they needed to elevate their business. However, that market is very narrow, and when you're trying to do something as significant as we were thinking. This was much more than that importance. Okay, this was about our vision is arts for every life, and that we take that to heart from a business operations perspective. Every colleague here, before they come, they need to understand what does that mean to their job. And before we hired the design team, we had to let them know that that is their responsibility as we build the building, as we hire the team that's going to build the building. And the other compass that we had is we only wanted to work with kind people. So how do we, because we knew it was going to be hard. So how do you interview to say, are they going to embrace our vision, and are they going to have the fortitude to win, but also understand that this is going to be it's going to be hard. And so those were two so far. The last one is, as much as this is about culture, it's about placemaking. Right? So our vision statement doesn't even have the word arts in it. It's to be an inspirational place where people love to be, including our team, including our volunteers, including our porters, including the guests that come in, kids. And that's a huge responsibility. To say it's easy, it is. From day one, though, it's very, very difficult because the cultures of this industry, it's not that.
They weren't raised necessarily that same way.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't. Their institutions that they had come from had just molded into something that, and it's hard for a few people to change it. But here we had this opportunity, blank piece of paper, and you look at that and it's frightening. It's like, okay, no, we have to decide, and then we have to build alignment, and then we have to build consensus, and then we have to have people. They don't have to give us their money philanthropically.
Right.
They have to believe in you. It has to be bigger than what they think that they can achieve. And then they have to be proud of what they're giving you. That's only one small part of this whole business.
I think that may be one of the ways that it becomes exclusive, because it might be that the backgrounds of the people who are making those contributions are in different disciplines or in different areas, what they're familiar with. And so you can almost accidentally stumble into being exclusive or maybe even knowing too much about something.
Yeah, since they're wealthy, it's for them.
Right.
Okay, so now
whose place is this?
So now you layer in design. So this building, in most art centers, you walk up to. Not in Europe. Europe, art centers are on the piazza, and they're at grade. And at the piazza, in that family room of those cities, you have culture, you have religion, you have civic leadership, you've got commerce, and then you have community. You know, people get married in piazzas. You have festivals in piazzas. They used to have executions in piazzas. Sometimes we felt that could have happened here too, but you know, hard project. But you know, it was interesting. So how in America we built everything up. You walk up to the arts, go into special doors. You separate the energy because they're individual theaters in one place. We had such a chance. It was so great just to kind of look at this saying, what can we do differently?
I love how you looked out to the world for best practices, both here and globally. And then when you walk in the entry here, that is one of the most spectacular, welcoming places. If it's not my wedding, this is a very special place to celebrate, bringing together family and community. So you're doing that right at street level. Right. They're welcomed in. This through line of that welcoming, that sense of kindness, that sense of rich invitation that you're giving is a through line throughout. Right. Could you talk about where that came from? What does that mean? That's not something we see a lot in many cultures or in many part of society today, where you're focused on kindness. Exactly.
Right. It was interesting. You know, one selfishly, I knew that a lot of my life was going to be part of this, and also my kids and my family. But everybody else. And I thought, if we're going to do this, we ought to approach it with the tone and the temperament of being kind. And sometimes that's confusing, because being kind does not mean that you're that's right. That you're not going to drive it, you're not going to win. You've got high standards, and I never thought, one thing I never thought was I was going to be accused of having too high of standards. Okay? Because you have to, and at the end of the day, it's usually a harder decision to keep your standards high. But after you get through them, no one remembers that that investment was worthwhile. Okay, so the timing to make tough decisions. Our chairman once told me, because it was tough, he said, you know, I asked you to do a job. I didn't ask you to be popular. Okay, and that's tough when you hear that and you're a leader, because naturally, when you're trying to build a culture that is kind, you still have to be tough, and you have to make the decisions sometimes that aren't the popular decisions. They later become the right decisions, but over those years, some people don't see it.
Talk about a moment where you had a choice that was faced, where you had to bring all of this together, this sense of tough love that you're talking about, and kindness. A moment where you might have had to struggle with weighing that as you were creating this vision.
Well, you know, you go to our local arts organizations and there became mistrust, and it wasn't anyone's fault, but what happened is the building was supposed to be built at one time. It was never supposed to be phased. We thought we were so smart. We said, if we put everything inside one building, it'll never be phased. And then 2009 came, right? And a third of our funding went away. It wasn't philanthropy. Believe it or not, philanthropy, again, here's where philanthropy started driving the stake in the ground, saying, we got this.
We're making it happen.
We're making it happen. But when a third of a, of a $500 million project is gone, you had to make some tough decisions. And one was, let's just do something different. Well, philanthropy was there, and we made a promise to them and to us and to our community. And so how do you make the right decision, which no one is never going to make everybody happy? And so what we did is we had to cut one of the venues off, and it happened to be the venue that was really for the local arts organizations. So fear came in, and to answer your question, trying to give them a promise that we're going to get it done when the likelihood was it's never going to get done was difficult.
Absolutely.
But lots of times we've had to say no, because as much as people feel entitled, and we want to feel entitled about this Performing Arts Center, the best thing about the center is when people say, it's my Performing Arts Center. This is for me.
And for me.
Right? And then the other side says, well, I'm also having to run a business.
Right.
And
that's the true sustainability of any
right.
enterprise, is that it has to be able to continue to feed and clothe and run
right.
this for the long haul.
The nice thing, too, is I had the chance to work with so many smart leaders. And they all came from an entrepreneurial background, the ones that really gave a lot of influence and stability to this project. And they made it very clear. There was a lot of doubt. You're never going to be able to. First of all, this team can't build it. They're never going to be able to run it. So there's a lot of people waiting for us to fail.
They can't because of lack of experience, lack of support, lack of...
Yeah. We don't look the part. We're not from that fabric. There are a number of issues. Okay. And so you're kind of going into it kind of always as the underdog. And I think that was to our advantage.
Yes.
You
turned it to your advantage.
Well, we did. But we were also, our chairman's very patient. And I learned a lot from him. You can't stand up and say, I can do this all the time. You can. You have to kind of show them. And it took a lot longer for the belief to start happening that we've got this. So we're running a very aggressive business, different than almost any performing arts center. We wouldn't have to raise money. We don't have to raise money to sustain our business. We could run this and make money. But our choice goes back to our vision, Arts for Every Life, and our purpose, an inspirational place. And what we do is we only raise 15% of our budget so we can give things back to the community. Excellent. And those people that didn't fund the center, they need to bring the center alive. So we raise funds. We just brought, I think, 1,200 people to come see Hamilton. They would never have been able to come here.
Amazing.
But when you take $250,000 of what could be profit and you say this is important, that's what matters.
And that is legend. That becomes the stuff of
that's right.
what people talk about. That is your
that's
reputation.
Right.
That's the story.
Yeah.
What impact does this have on you personally? You've played a long game here. Mm-hmm. You're a high achiever. You want to win. Mm-hmm. You have a vision for finding the right way to create an institution that's built to last and probably beyond your tenure. Mm-hmm. That's what I see here as a place that is larger and greater than any individual.
Mm-hmm. Our children's children will be here.
How does that come to a conclusion in your mind as a a journey that you want to take in your career? I mean, what do you wish you knew that you could share with others as you coach them to think about taking on a massive project like this one and becoming a chief executive of such an ambitious project? What do you wish you knew?
Sometimes I feel like I knew, but I didn't know better. You know, I feel like the core foundation of what you learn when you're young and how to apply it to a business situation, those fundamentals are still there. If you look at great coaches, Lou Holtz, John Wooden, they're great business executives, but also great business people too, besides the coaches. If you really listen to what they're saying, they go back to just fundamental issues. You know, I learned from my family, commit to excellence. And you look at that and you think, well, wait, what do you mean? Well, I tell you what, you know how many times I had to unload a dishwasher and reload it and unload it and reload it until it was right?
Okay.
Okay, so, but the point is, where are your guiding principles? And I struggle with how do I apply that in business? And use the terms that when you're leading a team that they can understand and get aligned. Alignment is something that I took for advantage. Of course, everyone's going to believe in this. Our chairman believes in it. Our mayors believe in it. I believe in it. And you have to believe in it. And the reality is you can't make anybody believe anything. You have to listen to them and get them behind a vision and make them feel that they're going to be part of the success. You know, and then get them to say, can you contribute for this to be excellence? Can you do that? While being kind and positive along the way.
Often there's just as many different ways to interpret a belief as there are the people who you've asked to participate in that.
Right.
And when you started to manage groups of people and come to that conclusion, could you share with us a time maybe that you were trying to bring that vision to life? I mean, how did you decide to articulate something that could resonate with so many people?
Well, I skinned my knees, big time, road rash. Because when you start with a team of one, I don't have to manage anybody.
Right.
Right. Then now you're managing consultants, and then you're getting to a point where you need to start building your infrastructure to build the team. I never, in my mind, thought that the hardest part of this project was building a team. And then this is where the road rash came in. I made the assumption that everyone would believe in this as much as I already did, without taking the time to find out if they're interested in believing in it, and if they could apply that to their skill set and their expertise here, which I didn't have. So there's a lot of people you have to line around the project that has a different skill set to do something like this, building it but operating it. Mm-hmm. And so again, it goes back to that third principle: big idea, great leadership, and communication. Is how can you communicate the importance of a culture to your bottom line? And it is so critical that your tone and how you run your business, and keep it excellent, goes all the way down to somebody saying, I want to come back. I want to be on that stage. I want to take a class. I want to work for your company. I want to give you $1 million. And, and then you have to take that and own it, because that's not just a one-time transaction. You want that to be always with the business.
When you have to scale so much, and there's so many people in terms of their belief systems to touch, to have that continue, that relationship depth, how do you communicate that? What, as an individual executive, how do you engage
well,
people that way?
Again, making assumptions that everybody communicates is probably one of the worst. Well, first, you should never make assumptions, but we all do naturally.
Right, of course.
And so again, when we started building the teams, then all of a sudden I'm the only one that had direct reports. And that leadership team didn't have direct reports. Then when they had direct reports, that was a shock to their systems. Then they had direct reports. And then what happened is, naturally, the communication line is like this, where it wasn't like this.
Right.
So it took us a while, one, to hire the executives and the leadership, not just the executives, the entire organization, that, one, do you want to be on the all-star team? And they all do. But when they get here, it's a different responsibility. And so they have to figure out, do they want to, they want to leave it on the field every day, right? Then on the other side is making sure that they understand that they need each other. We do something here, and this was, again, a lesson learned as we were building the company. Just seeing everybody once a week is important. But if everyone had the chance to say, what is a function that they're contributing to this business, eventually they'll all realize that they need each other. So we do something called a huddle every week.
Okay.
Everyone stands up. We have 130 or so employees. We're in a circle. It never goes more than 30 minutes. And it's really about seeing each other. But it's also about function. Okay, so starting there, everyone needs to understand that this only works with a team. Right? Then every level that crosses disciplines, they have to meet as a team.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's all simple things. It's like simple things that we forget to do because we have to take the time to do it. And you make the assumption that communication is the easiest part of a business when it's one of the most difficult.
Clearly simple but not easy, and also difficult to orchestrate when everybody's busy. You've got
Right.
everybody active, and then you're going to bring them together for this huddle
Right.
that now has more than 100 people in that huddle
Right.
to make the break. Talking about what it feels like to be a leader today, the many different cross currents that are flowing in terms of opinion and issues that are raised in
Right.
public. And how do you think about that? What's your coaching opportunity for other executives who are facing leading in a community of conversation that
Right. It's interesting. A lot of again, since we had the chance to decide, and we had a lot of feedback from all these other executives of where they're struggling, we had the chance to put some really cool practices in place. Again, easy to do, but hard to implement.
yes
One thing that when I decided to stay with the project, I told our chairman, I will give you 100%, but I am never going to miss anything with my family. Whether it's serving pizza on Tuesdays or baseball 3 days a week, I'll give you 100%. We put that culture here way back when, 2003. So every colleague here, goes to workforce, which is a big
Yes,
issue right now.
it is.
I want to work from home. Right? Okay. What we're trying to, we had this way before. This has been starting since, like I said, 2003. Everyone here has a chance to have flexibility so they can be relevant in their family. But it's their responsibility for work-life balance. And they have to communicate, hey, I'm out for the next 3 months because I've got baseball Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they miss everything, and everybody supports them. Okay? We don't have work from home. I think that's a completely polar thing to a place of public assembly. And to say that you shouldn't be here, you need to be here. Now, you don't have to be here in a box because you still have that flexibility. So from a workforce perspective, again, you've got to give it 100% to be on this team. It's your responsibility for work-life balance because that contributes to a great culture. It's great joy for us when I hear we had somebody that this weekend they couldn't be here to help us because they had basketball all day. They would have wanted to be here. But the priority is you've got basketball. And when they come in to work on today, it was like, hey, how was basketball? There's this is so minor, but it's so important.
well, it's cultural.
It is cultural.
It's part of kindness.
It is.
And it's part of pulling together to say, we are going to be able to have a full life.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that you probably haven't backed off on what they needed to accomplish
Right, they don't.
and achieve. Could you take us to that moment of opening night? You've lived several lifetimes, existential and otherwise, I'm sure, from the early 2000s to the moment that you were opening the first of the theaters. Could you give us a picture of what that was like for you to be walking in here?
Yeah.
That amazing staircase, this incredible team.
You know, it was interesting. A couple of reflections. Hearing the voices of, I didn't know this is what we were building. I didn't know this is what oh my gosh, this is what they've been talking about. That to me was an aha moment. Okay, big aha moment.
You could see it.
Oh yeah, I could hear it.
And you could feel it, and
Feel
now
it.
you realize that they
Right.
couldn't see it,
That's
feel
right.
it, or hear it.
It was hard to describe. You know, we're going to build one of the top performing art centers in the world. Sure you are, right? Or what does that mean? You know, because we didn't have much here. You know, the other thing is, which I think this is great joy when you come here next time, hopefully soon. When people come to the center, there's an anticipation, and there's this expression when people come in. Sometimes it's anxiety. I'm not sure where I'm going. I'm a little bit, this big place. You've got that going on. We built this where there is great community before a theater. And we didn't know if it was going to work. So we had a lot of people saying, you can't have that big of a lobby. And,
Oh, I see.
right. And we've got, most art centers have 5 points of sale. We have 45 points of sale. And you think, oh, that's a good business move, and that's what we did. But could we get people to come here well before a show so they could see each other and see the diversity in the audience and have that anticipation, the theater before theater and the humanity before humanity? And it worked. It worked. So people come 90 minutes before a show here.
I can believe that.
The reflection on opening night is when, and it wasn't just opening night, it's every night. When people leave here, the engagement between who they're with and others, they talk, they touch, they hug, they reflect, they laugh. I can't wait to come back next time, or what should we see next? That is so rewarding because not many businesses can see that all the time.
When can you convene a huddle of everyone who's doing business and being a part of your community at the same time?
So
what a
there's,
rare privilege.
yeah. So if anybody, if I always think if I'm having a tough time and I've forgotten what I'm doing, you just got to go see a show, exit the theater, and it's like, okay, now I see that this changed somebody's life just a little bit. It's really cool. It's cool.
Well, you've done a remarkable project, program, and transformation of this community, and it's such an honor to be a part of it, and to get to know you and this incredible art center and how you're continuing to inspire people every day.
It's been great, and I've got a great team that inspire me every day, and our donors. Actually, everybody does. It's good stuff. Really good
Fantastic.
stuff. Thank you.
Before I lose you, I would like to have Dr. Benita Thompson come and ask you 2 questions that are critical to her work. She just completed an amazing study at Harvard and Penn, which has become the first ever leadership's construct, believe it or not, on collaboration.
Oh, wow.
So with all the work about teams, and you made references to great athletic coaches and coaching, which is a big part of my life for executive coaching, she, for the first time, talked to chief executives about what it really means to learn about being a expert collaborator for the first time from scratch.
How did you go about establishing trust with the employees, the donors, to make this happen?
Yeah. I mean, it's ongoing. I don't think you can ever say I'm trusted or I trust you. It's a kind of an ongoing evolution of a relationship, I would imagine, or what I've realized. I think when you deliver on your promise, things become easier. Supporting, listening is also a great way to collaborate, to build trust. Over time, I think the more that you can explain what your vision is as a leader, and you can bring people around an idea where they then have ownership of it with you, okay, and it's accomplished together, it's like a winning team. Every role is important. Or let's just bring it to the arts. It's like in a play. It's not just the people that are on the stage that are making the magic. It's everyone, and they all realize that they need each other. Sometimes in business we forget that, right? Right. And so how do you remind and keep that in the forefront of when someone's coming to work? They know that's part of their job.
So how do you do that?
Well, I think saying what you believe, acting on your beliefs, I think is one. Committing to excellence is a huge issue. I mean, again, being accused of wanting to do things right all the time is a compliment, okay, to me, all right? You just want that to be, everyone else to feel that. It's like, do we want to be adequate? Adequate does not relate to a bottom line. I bought an adequate product. I went to an adequate show. I went to an adequate, no, you can't do that. We don't want to have adequate employees. We want exceptional employees. And we're going to keep working for that. And sometimes it's easy to settle on that. And it's something now where I still believe that we're still in the building phase. And hopefully the leaders beyond me will always feel that they're building so people can be part of that. I think it's harder to achieve what you just mentioned when you're not really moving something forward and they can see it. They can see it and they can feel it. They can experience it, right?
Now, you talked about winning, and yet a lot of what you're doing here is building community. And so how do you define winning, and how do you communicate that to the team?
Well, I'm fortunate that I don't have to be the only one communicating it to the team. A lot of our colleagues have the chance just to see the results of their effort every day. So our production team and our programming team work with artists and managers, producers. When they come to this building, when they leave this building, they say, "What a great experience." That right there is instant gratification. When you see the results of students becoming confident in what they want to learn, right there, it's immediately they get fed something that's reinforcing them of their great work. Again, just watching people leave the venue and come to the venue, it's so gratifying. It's a wonderful elixir, honestly, for everybody here, because they can see the results of what they do. And sometimes we forget it. We say, "You guys, we got to get down. We got to go and really remind ourselves of what we have as for an opportunity for our jobs." Yeah.
Now, you said that most performing arts theaters are built in 20 years. You built it in about 4 or 5?
Oh, no. We actually, okay, when I say built it, and thank you for clarifying that. The notion from when the leaders say we ought to have a performing arts center to opening it is about 20 years. So the Miami Performing Arts Center was maybe about 25 years. Meyerson Hall in Texas was about that long. NJ-PAC that's in New Jersey, that was about that long, because you have to answer those questions. What it should do, what it should cost, and who should pay for it. And that big one's important, because if you get it wrong, the other two don't happen. And so you have to get alignment, you have to get the funding, you have to, you really have to study what is the purpose of that business for that community, and what should the center that's helping make that product, what should that be? And I think sometimes people get it backwards. What should the building look like, and what's our statement here? And then let's try to get the purpose in the building refined later. And there's a couple examples of art centers that kind of went that way, and they're still struggling on their business model.
Because they didn't set the purpose first.
Yeah, right. Set the purpose first.
Interesting.
Like it's a great example. So, Dell Computers and then Apple. Okay. Dell Computers, this is no criticism of anyone, but when they came out, this very, big manuals, different vocabulary. You had to kind of read everything to get it going. It was intimidating. The market that used Dell Computers was more narrow. Then you have Apple come around, and you got people that are 2 to 102 using an Apple computer, and it's simple, right? It's the same experience of what you need a computer for, just 2 different approaches. Southwest Airlines, United Airlines. They have the right purposes. They're getting there, but they're different cultures. So that's kind of the same thing here, is what should this culture be to help us run a successful business? Because those cultures of those 2 airlines are about their successful businesses. They could choose a different culture. They just chose to have those 2. So that's where this was so exciting. It was, you have a blank sheet of paper, and then we're deciding what kind of culture do we want for a business that's very similar to others. We just want our business to reflect that culture, because we think that's going to be more profitable for our purpose. And the profit is not only financial, but it's also from community. Yeah.
So building that community.
Building a community.
The other thing you mentioned is alignment, and how critical it is, and how you had everybody meeting with everybody once a week.
Right.
How do you align people to that vision? What sort of tools could you offer other leaders on how you go about doing that?
Right. Sometimes you're whoever you're trying to align, they think you're nuts. We're going to try this, and they're like, no way. So again, there's another phrase that I was raised: if the answer is no, you're asking the wrong question. Make sure you have enough information where you're going to get people to say yes. Okay. So if you're going to have that big idea, what kind of information that you can give the people that you're trying to align, so they feel that it's going to be successful and you're going to get a yes. So early on in designing a project, It was, we have a transitional theater that moves. We have, multiple theaters in a city that doesn't even have a performing arts center. How did you do that? And the alignment started with what type of leaders did we want to lead this from a board perspective? They are big thinkers. They're okay to feel that that Orlando needed the best, where others were saying, well, we just need to be here. Don't build this, build this. We're okay with this, right? Our leaders were thinking, we want this. So alignment of the right leadership that I could follow and that I could lean in was important. For our team, same thing. Most of our team, they have a skill set that I don't have, right? Sometimes they depend on me or they think that I need to have the same, but the real goal is I believe in them, but I need for them to be thinking that this needs to be excellent. So in the operations here is how do you get the alignment around being excellent every day? When they have the responsibility, I trust them to put the teams around them that are going to make sure that they can do their job in an excellent way. When we do big projects that are kind of out of the gate, we did something during the pandemic that was never done, it wasn't done anywhere in the world. We decided to build a outdoor venue for, I think the first go around was 2,500 people. And I mentioned this, and again, people thought, you're nuts. Well, and I realized it does sound kind of crazy. I said, but in my mind, I said, if we have a hospital that will support us to make sure that this is safe, they will think that I'm less nuts and that we're less nuts. So we went to a hospital that's a very entrepreneurial, yes, hospital, yes, kind of let's do it, Advent Health. And I said, would you get behind this idea? And we just are trying to explore it. It's a paper exercise. Let's just go through the paper exercise. And they said, yes, we will. That's the first yes. So now we're starting to get the paper exercise going, and it was too soon. It was like I started this a month after the pandemic. So let's just wait a little bit. So right around July and August, they said, okay, let's see how we can do this and make it completely COVID safe outside. So with that partnership, all of a sudden the alignment behind the big idea became a little easier. Where the fear was, we now had someone saying, we're going to take that fear away from a safety perspective. Now where the fear was is, can our team do it? And the big fear was we don't have any money and our business is going out of business. So then a few of us said, let's just call some people and say, do you want to get involved in a crazy idea? And we don't know if it's going to work, but we ought to try it because it's going to bring community together. And the fact that we have always had this let's think up here and we've been delivering on our promise, the alignment for that project became easier from a funding perspective. And then the execution, we had some leaders on our team saying, we got to do this. And we did it. We did the whole thing. And what it did is, for us, the most important thing was how do we keep our team? Because we were losing our team because our funding was gone. This industry was the first to go.
Right.
So why were we doing this with our team is we need to keep our team. Hard to build. And then they bought into that right away because building a team is hard, right? 2, how do we do what we do best? We know how to bring people together. And 3, if our vision really is placemaking, we ought to try to do it during the pandemic. And so that gives you an idea of how we got our team aligned around something that wasn't really easy.
That's phenomenal. And I heard that you actually built infrastructure and little boxes so that people would be protected from the COVID.
We had a long relationship with the scaffolding company as we built this project over so many years. So to answer your question you asked early on, length of time. So the planning for this project was from 2003 to all the funding came aligned in 2007. And then we broke ground in 2011. So we were in business from 2003 and we opened in 2014. And from 2003 to 2014, we had never earned a penny.
Wow.
We only could function if people believed in us to give us their money.
And how did you develop that belief?
Now you have relationships, communication. This is where we are in the project. We're making headway. And I also think we invited people that to be part of this that were from other communities that had seen how difficult these projects are. So if you are from Chicago and you have means, to get involved to make a difference in Chicago is pretty tough because it's such an older, historic, accomplished city. This city is very entrepreneurial. We love collaboration in Orlando, and we love inviting new people to build community. I think that was refreshing. And I think the people that really have been holding up this community and philanthropy for such a long time, they have valued the fact that there's more people here that are willing to lift up Orlando, and they're good with the fact that other people need to feel that this is their home too. And that's nice. A lot of communities don't want to change. This community, we have 78 million people in Orange County that visit here, and we love new people. We love that kind of window to the world. It's nice.
That is nice. You have a lot of performers who come in, and the rumor has it that there can be very strong personalities in that group. And you've got this very kind team. How do you keep the relationships going when you're working with a very strong personality?
So sometimes it's disarming with people with strong personalities when you've got more of a calm environment. And I'm not saying that I'm always calm either. But we've had circumstances that have happened here where we've gotten very aggressive personalities that come here. We just say it's not part of our culture. It's not.
Even to the guest
Producer.
artists?
Oh, absolutely. It's not part of our culture. And that's very hard for someone to argue with. It's unnecessary, especially over the past 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years, is saying that we need to be a tolerant community, not just this community, America or the world. We need to be more tolerant of each other. And this industry usually leads in saying we need to be more tolerant. Yet in their practices in business, they aren't. That it's just, to me, doesn't make sense. And I'm okay to call anybody on that in a minute. There's no reason for anybody to be that harsh or that demanding. We like demanding, and we'll deliver on it, but you can do it in a way that is respectful.
That's excellent. And there's so many leaders who struggle with that piece of it, of calling it that it's not part of their culture. That's
It's
really excellent.
I don't mind. Again, doing a job and is the most important thing. Our job is making sure that this team is going to have the culture that they deserve to work in.
No wonder you have such a good team.
I have a great team. They're a great team. They got this place in great hands for every generation to follow. Hopefully that'll stick, right?
Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate
Yeah,
the
my
interview.
pleasure. Thank you so much.